Hello everyone, welcome to Laurie's Little Studio. I'm Laurie and today I've got this in front of me. This is the dress that I had planned to make for Candice out of this polished cotton. It's very nice fabric. She bought it, I want to say over 10 years ago, I think. So anyway, we've been talking about it several weeks now, and she's decided that she wants View B, which is this one right here. And we decided that I had discussed doing the belt. I don't know if you can see that, maybe here. View C has a little belt that goes with it. And we had talked about maybe doing that out of a floral type, excuse me while I adjust that light, kind of like a, well, almost like this fabric, but it would have to be something that matched this fabric. And you know blue never looks the same in person as it does on camera. So I don't think you're getting the true version of this. The first thing I want to do is read through this pattern. So if you're new, if you're new to sewing, or if you're new to simplicity, or if you've never made a Cynthia Rowley pattern, or if you think there could be something in here that you're just kind of like, I don't know, I need to read about this first, just go ahead and do it. It takes like 5 minutes. So what I'm looking for is right here, the seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch throughout, unless a particular step tells me to take a smaller or a larger seam allowance. And it will be listed if that happens in the instruction part. So I'm going in it knowing that all the seam allowances are 5/8 unless otherwise stated. There are adjustments apparently on the pattern pieces if you need to lengthen it or to shorten it. And press pattern pieces with a warm dry iron, because you don't want pattern pieces that are really wrinkly or folded, because that will change the way the pattern fits, the way it goes on the fabric, and then your fitting might be off. You need to pre-wash your fabric. It's kind of a pre-shrink step, and they do recommend that you circle your cutting layout. When I circle my cutting layout, I do it with heat erase ink. This is a friction pen. I'm going to circle View B. I need to measure how wide that fabric is. I haven't unfolded it or anything since Candice gave it to me. Okay, so now I need to look at View B dress. I've got View B right here. And this is for sizes 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. This layout right here is for sizes 16, 18, 20, and 22. And this one down here at the very bottom is for all sizes. If you've got 58 to 60 inch wide fabric, all sizes, this is your layout. If you've got 44 to 45 inch wide fabric, sizes 16 through 22, these are your potential layouts. And if you've got 44 to 45 inch wide fabric, sizes 6 to 14, these are your layouts. So the next page, we're going to see our sewing directions, and it's going to tell you, you've got a fabric key. Whoops, we're out of range here. Okay, a fabric key, and this is the right side of the fabric. This is the wrong side of the fabric. This is the interfacing, and this is the lining. So if you see these things, like for example this right here for dress A, B, and C, it has been lined, and this is the lining. This is the wrong side of the fabric, and I don't think they've got a right side of the fabric showing, but you want to make sure that you're aware of what is going on. And it will tell you, once you get it cut out, you will stay stitch the bodice front and the bodice back neck edges a 1/2 inch from the cut edge in the direction of the arrows. So we're going to start up here on the shoulder on both sides of this bodice right here, and and we're going to start and stitch to the center. And the same thing on the back piece. Well, you'll have two back pieces, but you're going to stay stitch from the top of the shoulder to the middle of the neck. Then we're going, and it stays in permanently, and it helps prevent stretching of this garment. You don't want it to show on the outside though, so make sure that you are not outside of your seam allowance. If you stitch it further out here, it will show. Okay, now we're going to make the darts in the bodice and the front back. This is piece 4, which is skirt front. And I think it's for size, yeah, this is for the size 14 through size 22. So this line right here is a pleat. This line right here is a pleat. Then we've got that pleat in the center that is created by folding the fabric. There'll be fabric behind here, and these two come together. And it has arrows to show you what direction you're folding your pleats. So this is piece 4. Piece 6 must be on the back. And here are the pleats, and of course the arrows are going to be going this direction because it's going to come from both directions. This side will go this way, and this side will go this way. And their instructions say, stitch the invisible zipper using an invisible zipper foot. So when I get ready to do the invisible zipper, if I choose to use an invisible zipper, which I kind of think I am, this is the foot that I will be using. Okay, so this is an invisible zipper right here. The invisible zipper, this is just a regular zipper, but when I flip it over so that the tabs are on the same side, you cannot see the zipper here, you can see the zipper here. It tells you how to finish up the back opening edges, turn the lining and the zipper tape to the inside, press, slip stitch. So there is hand stitching because you've got that lining you've got to stitch down. And then also you've got to hem. I will see you tomorrow when I come back in and do something with this pattern. I did get some thread. This is the original thread, and as you can see, it's just too bright. Locate all of the things that you need to start sewing. Okay, so I've washed and dried the fabrics. If you're curious, I'll show you how those edges turned out. So a lot of times we wash these fabrics and we open the washing machine and all we've got is a web of little tiny frays off of the fabric, and it's just ruined. But if you cut it with your pinking shears, as you can see, this has literally been out of the dryer for about 5 minutes. I grabbed it out of the dryer and came upstairs when the dryer finished. And I did the same thing to this fabric. I'm sorry, Blue Snail. They are they just, and I've had them adjusted and I've cleaned them, and I'm just done. Today, even though my fabric is ready, I'm just going to work on cutting out this right here. And I know what pieces I need based off this chart. Most patterns provide you with that chart, and you just look right here and it tells you which piece you need to cut for your project. And since I'm making view B, this one right here, I just look for whatever pieces are used to make view B. They should all be ready to go when I come back. I'm not going to cut those out on camera. If you're cutting out a multi-size pattern like this one is, and you're not able to really, as you're cutting with your scissors, you're not able to see where to cut like this right here is kind of a mishmash, and then these lines all converge. And I don't have to do all the way down. I just need a little assistance right here. I'll just look for those spots that I think might cause me some issue. I know it's probably going to be the skirt tops, possibly the bodice, and I'll just go from there. Hello everyone. I'm feeling better. I think you can tell in my voice I don't sound quite as stuffed up as I did the other day. I'm going to start cutting out the pattern the fabric out of the pattern pieces, and I'm probably not, oops, somebody just texted me. I'm probably not going to film that. I might film parts of it, but not the whole thing. You know, you just go along, cut out your pattern. I would definitely follow your layout. If I see anything weird on the layout, I'll point it out to you. So I will see you when I get done doing that. I've decided to move this piece to about here. I don't think I need to waste the extra fabric on this end, because over here, that's the end of the fabric. So I'm going to move this piece down and then cut it out. Now I'm going to go ahead and transfer markings. Alright, so I have some white thread. I'm going to double up my thread and just make a big old knot. There is a notch right here. Now I'm not going to make these pleats yet, because there could be other things that I need to do before I make the pleats, and I don't want to have to take the pleats out. But I am going to mark the pleat, so I'll know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm not pulling this tight. So my markings are semi-permanent and semi-permanent up here. And I know this is the top, so even if this chalk rubs off, which it won't, but if it did, I still know that this is at the top. And with these threads, I can go ahead and come back in and remark the chalk marks. If you've been following me for a while, you know that when I'm sewing something with a pattern, I prefer to fold my pattern pieces that are in use so that the number is showing. Now, the bodice back and the bodice front, I am probably going to mark with thread. So the back is going to have two sides. So I'm going to assume that this one is the right side, and the one on the bottom, this one, will open out and be the one on the left side. And I will do it last. And I'm going to do this now. Alright, so half of the front bodice has been done. And that's what it looks like. We've got the darts marked and the dot marked. And now this side has been done. So we got the 2 darts and the dot. Sometimes if I can't see the numbers very well, I'll just color them in, and then they stand out a little bit better. So this pattern piece will go face down on this side and face up on the left side. Alright, this side has been marked. I find if I put a couple of pins kind of in the middle and off center, so I've got one in the center and then one off to the side up here, and then I'll put another one. I don't want to come down below the lines where the pleats are, so I think I'll put another one over here, and that just stabilizes the top part of the pattern. It can't shift. On Saturday, I'm going to go to this. I don't know if you can see it. It's a fashion show flashback. So it's a historic fashion show that I'm going to go with my older daughter. It's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. I'm excited about it. Before I washed the lining, I trimmed the raw edges with my pinking shears. And this is basically just the bodice. They do not require a lining for the skirt. So they've been cut out, and I have not marked these yet. I'll probably wait until I get the first steps done, I think, because I'm going to mark these with chalk. Okay, so for bodice B, we're going to be stay stitching the pieces, and we are also going to be creating the darts. First things first, I need to do the stay stitching, and as a review, stay stitching is a stabilizing stitch that stays in your garment. So on the bodice, we will be stay stitching from here to here and from here to here. Because I've got my fabric marked, the marking stitches are here, here, and here on the back, then I know that I can go from here to here and from here to here on this side. But I don't want to get confused and flip it over and do the wrong side on one of these. And you want to stitch it, it tells you here to stitch it a 1/2 inch. So you can measure that, you can mark it, whatever you need to do, but you don't want it to be on the outside of your seam allowance. We're stitching from the top of the neck, shoulder area up here, down to the neck area. And I'm going to use about a 2.5 stitch length. And of course the whole point of a stay stitch is to keep it in its proper shape. Now it can't get stretched. I mean, I could pull it out of whack if I wanted to, but I'm not going to be hauling on it that hard. If you don't want to mark on your fabric, you can just put a pin. The next thing that we need to do is make the darts in the front and the back, as the directions say. And I'm going to do the side darts first. This is the wrong side of my fabric, so I'm going to pinch this pleat like so. And you want to make sure that your two lines are matched up when you fold it. So if it's off a little, just kind of make a slight adjustment. Poke your pin through again. And it looks like we're lined up good. So I've stitched off of the fabric. I'm going to lift my needle, lift my presser foot, and pull some thread. So I've got a nice length of thread here, and I'm going to tie it in a knot. So I need to untwist it because I know it's twisted from the lock stitch of my sewing machine. Untwist it and then half knot and then double half knot. So over, under, pull it nice and tight and then cut your threads. And you will not have a bubble at the point of the dart. And they really are shaping the garment. I can see the nice shape. But we've got two darts down here that need to be stitched. Well, here that need to be stitched. So we'll take care of that. And I'll be right back. Okay, I don't have a mannequin to put this on, so I've got it sitting on top of my ham. But you can see where this bodice that was once flat now has some shape from these darts and these darts. The next thing I'll do is the back piece of the bodice, which there are two, and there's one dart on each piece. So here and here down at the lower edge where it goes into the skirt. Candice and I went to Joann's, which is up north in Arlington, Washington, and we got a bunch of good stuff, but I you know, as I've been saying, I need a pair of good medium grade pinking shears, and since everything sadly is marked down, I went ahead and got this pair right here. If you feel like you need to shape your darts a little bit, go ahead at this stage and put it on your sewing ham on the wrong side facing up. So my darts are visible right here, and I'm just going to run over them. When you're making your lining, don't forget to start from the bottom and work your way up to the point of the dart. But most lining fabric can be pressed with an iron, so I'm going to give it a go. And I think I did mention that I was going to use a press cloth to do that. You can use any piece of fabric that you have as a scrap, or you can buy an actual press cloth. Now that I have the lining made and the bodice made, I'm going to mark 5/8 of an inch along the bottom edge of the lining, and then I'm going to go press it, and then we will trim the pressed under part to 1/4 of an inch, and then we'll attach these two pieces together. Now that that has been pressed under and trimmed down to 1/4 of an inch, we are going to stitch these two pieces together. And the way we're going to do it is turn this right side out. We want the seams matching. Yeah, okay. And we're going to pin this at the neck, matching the seams. Okay, so the first thing I do is make sure I cannot see any of the stay stitching. The next thing I do is clip this curve. Alright, there are several ways of clipping curves. The number one thing that you don't want to do is cut your seam. You can cut into the stay stitching, but not the seam. You'll have to go back and restitch it. It's kind of hard to match up the stitching lines, so just be careful. Alright, now we're going to turn it, and we want to stay stitch this seam to this fabric, not this seam to this fabric. So make sure your seam is facing your lining. Understitching keeps the lining below the outer edge of the neck. And I do need to press it, so I'm going to take care of that and I'll be right back. Now that we have done the understitching at our neck and then turned it right side and pressed, it is now time to stitch the arm side area. So we'll turn it back with wrong side out and then just stitch these armholes together. Ah ha ha, I've already made a big mistake. My plan is start at the top in the center of this piece of bias binding. Okay, I'm now at the side seam, so I'm going to stop on this half and come around on the other side. I will probably open this out stitch that, open this out, and stitch that at this seam. When I come back, we'll stitch this down. Good morning, everyone. So I've finished the sleeves. This is what the outside looks like, and there's the inside. Even though it's not the way the pattern had us do it or would have had us do it, I honestly believe this is going to be better, because if there are ever any alterations or repairs that need to be made, I can easily access anything on this bodice. I'm going to carefully read. I've got to press under Well, no, I already did that. It's been a few days and I fell down and all kinds of stuff has happened, but I'm here now. So anyway, we're going to press under this. I'm going to repress it. It looks like it's kind of fallen down. I've had this hanging up. Press that under, and then we are going to continue as follows for all three views. Views A, B, which is what we're making, and C. We're going to be stitching the skirt together before we do anything else. And I think we need to stitch skirt front to side skirt front and the back to the sides. So we'll have one piece in the front. I don't know what the glare issue is here. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we're going to have this one in the front, then a side piece and a side piece and two back pieces. And that's what we're going to do next. And I'm just going to mark it up here at the top. Okay, I got that marked. All right. So this to this and this to this. This front piece is the only piece that's not cut into two. So it's easily recognized and I've got my marks on it. And this is a back piece and this is a back piece because I left the pattern on the side pieces. We need to stitch sides to the front with right sides together. So with right sides together, you'll notice that there are notches that match up along this side seam. Here are the other notches, and there are also notches on the other side of the side pieces. I did lock my stitches at the top where the waistband is and at the hem. So this is the front and the sides. Here, the sides are over here. This is the front, and now we are supposed to stitch the back to the side pieces, and I need to trim the back with my pinking shears. Alright, so they start you off making the first pleat in the center front, and that's this right here. So we're going to take this marking and match them up and pin that on the mark. So if I look at this, it's this line right here and this mark right here match up, and we'll pin that at that mark, and in and out and in and out with the pin. We will take this fabric in the back and split it, and you want that equal on both sides. They don't tell you to do this, but because we will be stitching it down, I don't want this folded fabric to go to one side. Their instructions tell us to make, it says bring the folds to the broken lines and baste close to the fold. I will baste when I've got all of these done. Alright, so there's the front piece and part of the side piece. And there we go. The front piece is pleated. The next thing we need to do after we've gotten all of our pleats stitched in is attach the bodice and the skirt right here. And we're going to fold up the lining and pin everything together and then stitch the skirt to the bodice at the waistline seam. You're going to match your centers and your side seams. And if you are doing view C, I think it is, yeah, if you're doing view C, make sure you don't catch the tabs that are sewn at the side. Oh, I don't have a picture of that, but those little belt tabs will be in your side seam on the bodice, and you don't want to catch that as you're stitching the bodice to the skirt. Alright, so you fold the bodice lining up, so you've got just the bodice fabric here. And we're going to do this right sides together, so we'll push that lining up out of the way. And we'll match this tab. And as I did on the other side, I'm going to trim out this side seam right here at the edge. I went ahead and trimmed the bottom of the bodice with my pinking shears, but before I did that, I marked where my notch would have been on this piece because I didn't want to lose that mark. So this is the center front, and it needs to be between the two darts. So that needs to be shifted this way. Okay, so I have quite a bit of fiddling to do. Alright, so getting back to this, what we're going to do is, this is where the bodice edge ends. This is the bodice edge. This is the end that we're pinning to and eventually going to stitch. This is too much of the skirt. So I'm going to pin the two ends of the bodice to the two ends of the skirt. Before I build those pleats back into the skirt, I'm going to trim very carefully these seams. I don't want anything under the skirt. Alright, so I've got my pleats pinned back in, and I'm going to measure across the top and see if the bodice and the skirt will match. So I'm very happy to say that I believe it's going to work. I'm back again, everybody, and I've got my bodice here. I marked the center of the front bodice, and because I want my center pleat on the skirt to match up with the bodice. When I trimmed across here, I think this notch went away. There's one there and one there. And then there are two on the end that I will also need to mark to match up with the notches on the skirt that I've got right there. And there's another one right there. So I'm going to go ahead and baste these two ends together. If I started stitching on one end and went all the way across, I would end up with one piece longer than the other and pleats kind of out of place. So that's why I'm doing it that way. I'm going to look for the mark that I made, which is the center of my skirt. It's right there. And that's where I will start, making sure that the lining and the bodice and everything are out of the way. And I'm going to start, I'm going to stitch like 4, maybe 5 stitches, and then I'm going to back up and I'm going to start up again. And I am still basting at this point. I want to be able to pull my pins out, all of them, and hold the dress up and see what that seam looks like. And if I need to make changes, basting allows me to do that. Now I have flipped my skirt over. The whole project is flipped over because I need it to be on this side. I don't feel comfortable trying to get all of this bulk under the arm of my sewing machine. So that is something to consider. You will likely want to do that. And this time I can go from one end to the other end without worrying about any stretch because it's attached. And I am stitching just below my basting stitch so that my basting stitch won't show. I don't want to have to pull it out. I will probably pull it out, but if I cross over, then it makes it very difficult to get those stitches pulled out. At this point, after you have stitched the bodice to the skirt, you can, if you want to, and if you have a serger, you can serge this seam where they meet, where the bodice and the skirt meet up. I'm not going to because I don't have the proper color thread for that. But I am going to try to trim just a littlest bit off just the edge to help with fraying. So I'm still keeping the lining out of the way, and I am going to install the zipper next. It's an invisible zipper. I have to get my other sewing machine. So to install the zipper on the dress, we need to pull the lining out and away from the bodice. We're going to deal with the lining after we do the zipper. And there are probably 100 or more tutorials on how to install an invisible zipper. But for me, the most important thing that I ever learned in all of my sewing was to remember you want to make sure you've got your right side of your zipper with the pull. Here it is. It's not cooperating. But that's the right side of the zipper and the wrong side of the zipper. Right side, wrong side. The most helpful thing I ever learned was you want to set the zipper down on the garment that you're stitching it on with these coils away from the raw edge of your fabric. Now I'm going to stitch that lining down along the waist seam on the inside, and I'm going to start along one of the zipper back and just stitch all the way around. And it's possible that you already know this, but I'm just going to say it for the individuals who don't know. We're going to be stitching only on the seam. So even though I'm pinning all the way through, I'm only going to be stitching the seam and the lining. I don't want to go all the way through so that my stitches could show on the front side of this dress. What I plan to do along the bottom is simply serge right along this bottom edge so that my thread is going into the fabric and just kind of riding along the bottom edge. I will see you back here when I'm done serging. Okay, now I'm just going to use these threads as the back side of my stitches, and I'm going to take a little tiny stitch in my fabric and just like that the dress is finished. I will put some pictures up of Candice wearing the dress, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!